These photos were captured before a fateful hot air balloon ride in Egypt. Little did the 21 passengers know, their holiday highlight was about to become the deadliest hot air balloon disaster in history. With a split-second decision to jump or stay in the basket, the choice would determine who lived and who didn't. This is the story of the Luxor hot air balloon disaster. At around 6:15 AM on the 26th of February 2013, a hot air balloon registration SU-283 took off from Luxor, Egypt, around 511 kilometers or 317 miles south of Cairo. Operated by Sky Cruise, on board were 21 people, including 29-year-old pilot Momin Murad. For the tourists on board that day, it was to be the highlight of their holiday, a morning flight over the Valley of the Kings against the backdrop of the rising sun. Pictured here before the flight are British couple Michael and Yvonne Rennie, one of whom would jump from the basket later and one who would not, decisions that would keep only one of them alive. Hot air balloons are among the most popular tourist activities in Egypt, providing aerial views of the Nile River, the Temple of Karnak, and the Valley of the Kings. The hot air balloons of Luxor carry more than 200,000 tourists each year. However, the safety of the industry in Egypt has been brought into question on several occasions. In 2009, 16 people were injured when a balloon crashed on landing. Following this, balloons in Egypt were grounded for 6 months while safety measures and pilot training were improved. However, after President Mubarak's topple in 2011, the rule of law and the new regulations were largely ignored. In 2011, the same balloon featured in this video was involved in another crash. It was repaired and returned to service. More recently, 1 person was killed and 12 were injured when a balloon crashed in 2018. At around 6:40 AM, after a successful flight out over the desert and the monuments below, the captain of balloon SU-283 radioed his ground crew with his intended landing location. Captain Momin Murad lowered the balloon to just 10 feet or around 3 meters off the ground. After throwing a drop line to his 10-man ground crew, the balloon was now secured. However, a dramatic series of events followed. The basket, still 10 feet off the ground, was suddenly engulfed with flames. Captain Murad, who found himself on fire, and British tourist Michael Rennie climbed over the side and leapt to the ground. As crew members rushed to the captain's aid, the remaining ground crew found they could no longer hold the balloon down and had no choice but to release the rope. This was a death sentence for the 19 left on board. Now completely out of control, the balloon climbed steeply into the sky. People on the ground watched in horror as passengers began jumping over the side to escape the fire. However, at such a height, there was no chance of survival. At around 300 meters or 980 feet off the ground, the balloon's fire-damaged envelope could no longer sustain flight, and it began spiraling towards the ground. Almost 2 minutes after the ordeal began, it plummeted into a cane field west of Luxor. No one left on board survived the fall. In the immediate aftermath of the accident, first responders and the balloon ground crew were the first on the scene. Captain Momin Murad, although badly burned, had survived. British tourist Michael Rennie, who along with the captain had jumped from the basket at the onset of the fire, was also alive, while the bodies of 18 passengers lay strewn across the field. This included Yvonne Rennie, who had not jumped with her husband. British tourist Joe Bampton, who had bailed early at 160 feet, suffered traumatic injuries, but was miraculously still alive. However, despite being rushed to a Cairo hospital for surgery, he died shortly after. 19 people had died in the world's most deadly hot air balloon disaster. With victims from all over, the world demanded answers. What had caused the fire? In the days following the tragedy, local media speculated that the balloon had hit a power line, and Egypt's civil aviation minister suspended all balloon flights for the following month. Mohammed Osman, head of the Luxor Tourism Chamber, accused civil aviation authorities of lowering standards before the accident. These people are not doing their job. They're not checking the balloons, and they just issue licenses without inspection. National authorities quickly denied these allegations. Accident investigators turned their attention to the captain, who was still recovering in hospital. However, he could not identify the source of the flames. Reconstructing the wreckage, investigators found evidence suggesting the cause of the fire was a fuel leak in one of the hoses connected to the burner. The hose had been in use since 2005 and accumulated extraordinarily high flight hours. Luxor's first prosecutor, Mohammed Fahmy, said in response to these findings, "The pilot and the maintenance engineer did not make necessary technical checks before taking off." Captain Murad, who denied wrongdoing, insisted the pre-departure checklist didn't require him to check the area of the hose where the fire started. Information regarding whether the captain, the maintenance engineer, or the balloon operator, Sky Cruise, faced any formal punishment is murky, to say the least. Although the captain was at least initially charged with manslaughter, an outcome to that has been difficult to find. The Egyptian Civil Aviation Authority released its final crash report on January 7, 2014. The 219-page report blamed a leak in the fuel line connected to the burner. The aging line sprung a leak and it ignited the balloon when it came into land. The fire severely injured the pilot, who jumped from the basket. As some of the ground crew released the ground line to attend to the pilot, the remaining crew couldn't keep it near the ground, and the burning balloon rose rapidly before crashing back down. The Luxor balloon tragedy remains the most deadly ballooning incident in history, and the worst aerostat accident since the Hindenburg disaster in 1937.